Hey everybody, it's Paul with reporting live from my sofa. How's it going today? It is evening time right now. That's why the shades are drawn, the light is somber. And I am going to be reviewing day 11 of the Rosenbaums, as I have come to know them. This is basically a video talking about cringe for probably 20 minutes. Literally, that's what it is. Spoiler alert, it's about cringe. So without further ado, let's review. As I said, you're about to witness me talking about a total cringe fest for about 20 minutes. I'm going to try and keep it shorter, but we shall see. So we're past naming a lot of these people at this point because literally we're going to just start going by things like their mailman, the post lady, a woman who crossed Jennifer on the same street when she was 12 years old, a childhood friend from 500 years ago. Literally, I'm waiting for a subpoena to show up in my mailbox because they maybe saw a video where I talked about them and they want me to come testify on Jennifer's behalf. It's to that point. I'm just like, who hasn't the defense called up there at this point? Y'all, I mean, I'm even trying to say it right now. Even with notes, I'm like, it is going to go down in history, y'all. This is one of those cases. So let's just go ahead and start going through this. Obviously, some of these people stuck out more. A lot of them didn't. Literally, the first witness, I wrote nothing interesting. I mean, and isn't that the case for all of them? We're going to see a theme go through with these people. So I'm just going to kind of go through my notes and put what I put down here and go over what I put down. So the second witness is someone that Jennifer, basically, that knew Jennifer from when she came into the group homes at age 12 and then age 17. And essentially, this is what the state did, and I want y'all to think about this, and if any of y'all have any information, let me know. Drop it like it's hot down there. So you know how the state gets up there, and they're like, do kids come into this home that are violent? Do kids come in here that don't hold accountability for their actions? Do kids come in here that, basically are kind of portraying like, bad kids or whatever, maybe people who have done things wrong, things of that nature? So, and I read somewhere, and I don't know where I read it, that she was in the home because she ran away. That could be a rumor. I don't know it is fact. But this is what I started doing. Okay, so remember how when at some point during the testimony, it was brought up that, when she was trying to apply for this, her CPS record came up from like being in the foster care system. And essentially that record or whatever it was keeping her, it was going to prevent her from going through this process. So then when they got up there, this lady got up here and the state started questioning her and going in this way of, is it, do some kids come in with this issue and that issue? I was like, I wonder if there is stuff in Jennifer's past that for whatever reason in pre-trial, it was done to where this can't come forward and be put into court for whatever reason. Maybe she was a juvenile. Who knows? And again, this is my theory here. I don't know. And so the state is in a very roundabout way questioning this in regards of she's really talking about Jennifer and her past, that she can't come right out and assign to Jennifer for whatever reason. And so essentially she's saying, these things. And some of the things she said were, do they have temper tantrums? Do they have no remorse? Have no accountability? And I mean, things of this nature. And so it was so weird to go into it. And I'm just like, I think she's low key putting Jennifer on blast in the most legal way possible that she can. So, and then combined with the whole, her record from, the time in foster care was going to be weird. So there was that. I found that to be interesting. And of course the state just kind of dissects everything. And I'm going to get more into what I think is an overall theme that we see with these witnesses after we go over some more of their stuff. So Shelby Rollins, I did write her name down. Now she met Jen through her husband who went to basic training with Jen and still has Jen watching her own children. And I was like, okay, but then here's what doesn't make sense about it, because she's trying to come off like, oh, it's been going on for a long time. We've known each other for 10 years and da-da-da-da-da. Have you ever met the girls? Well, only once. And I'm just like, why is this a theme? The only time she has seen one of the girls was when she was passing her, taking her own daughter to get a cast on or something like that at that same type doctor. And basically passing in Jen. That's the only time. So I'm like, okay, so you're supposed to be these good friends, but time and time again, these certain people, it's just weird to me. And so then she's describing, now her youngest daughter, I believe she said was 10. So maybe at the time of this event, this girl was 6. So Jen's been watching her off and on. Again, my thing is this, you know, you can be an abuser, but also have common sense about it. Would it be in Jen's best interest, especially while she's out on bail for murdering a kid, to abuse somebody else's child? You know, of course not. You know, do I think Jen's that dumb? I mean, I would think not. So I just found that information to be odd. And again, all that this is doing with the defense is trying to paint this picture of humanizing them, doing these things, but all it does is allow the state to get up there and say, did you see the girls in this capacity? Were you able to see their skin? Were you able to see this? And then once we see, well, these people don't even know these kids. They just passed them at the grocery store, you know, and they're going to have them up as a witness. It looks desperate. And I mean, let's be honest. The defense is a little desperate at this point. Okay. Y'all, they called the mailman up on the stage. They called the man, and that's what we're going to call at this point. Not the stage, okay? Because it's turned into... In fact, we won't even call it the stage. We're going to call it Ring 1 of the circus, because that's what the defense has turned it into. Y'all, they called the mailman. I mean, that's when I was like, y'all, hide your kids, hide your wife, hide your husbands. We are all getting subpoenas to come in this trial. I mean, everyone's going up there. Y'all, we're all going to take a turn testifying for the defense in this. I swear to God, they are pulling everybody. They are going through the phone book and picking names. So they got the mailman, and I'm just like, okay, you know, and he's talking about this time where he came out of mail, and I guess, she's trying to establish that people have seen these kids not abused, but again, they have clothing on, they have this, that, and the other. I thought it was so weird when, because you know how the standard questions that the state asks is, were the girls wearing a shirt? Were they wearing pants? Did you see this, that, and the other? And when she's like, did you see her back? No. Did you see her neck? Or, her thighs, whatever. Do you see her groin? And he, instead of saying no immediately, he goes, not specifically. And I thought, was like, why did you say that? That's so weird. And I'm not trying to come up with some theory or anything here, but it was just such an odd question, or not odd question, but such an odd response. And my only thought was, well, maybe he was weirded out by that, because it's kind of a grotesque question. You know what I'm saying? I know they have to ask these things, and there's a reason they're doing it, but it was the most weirdest response that I've heard. I'm like, why would you say not specifically? It was just so weird to me. So we keep seeing this pattern with people getting up there, talking for a few minutes and being done. I mean, literally Corinne getting up there and asking them a question or two and then moving on. And the state getting up there and just making it 10 times worse for the defense by tearing them to shreds. Then we have Joseph's sister come up there. And I'm not going to spend too much time on her because the meaty part of the day is coming up, in my opinion. So here's the big thing that stuck out to me was she was portraying the coroner to be odd and biased, where she was like, well, he came in and he was like, oh, that Jennifer, and she was trying to make it out like that. And the state established the defects, like when the girls stayed with her, they never checked on that or anything, which is another, okay, really. Now the sister was visibly upset. I mean, I'll give her that. Like, there was, she was upset. The sister was definitely visibly upset. I don't know, because her testimony, and I don't know who watched her testimony where, but it got so choppy, between the Long Crime Network and 11. I was like, well, where did this go? Where did that go? Because some of the things I'll watch, all the way through, and then other ones I'll watch the bits and pieces of it. And so with her, it's like I saw something, I'm like, where did it go? And I looked for it. So I found what I could on her. So that being said, I was reading the comment section, a few different people were stating that her own kids have been taken away from her for neglect. I don't know if that came out in the stand. If it did, let me know. But if that is true, right now it's allegedly, because I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to go in the comment section and be like, oh, well, they said that, But I just feel like, okay, enough people are mentioning this, so maybe it was said and I just can't find that testimony for some reason. I don't know. But I was like, if that's the case, are you kidding me? Type thing. Because again, it's one of those things where if that was the case and that came out in the stand, why would you bring her up there? But I don't know, so I'm not going to spend much time on it. The brother-in-law, her husband, gets up there and talks. This is another thing that I found interesting. The only aspect of his stuff that I found interesting is when he's talking about the reactions at the hospital. And his wording of it, because he says, when we got there, was Jennifer crying? Well, she looked like she was or had been. I mean, her face was red, and Joseph was pretty much the same way. He was shaking. Okay, if you're describing somebody who's visibly upset, and you're going to be like, oh my God, she was inconsolable. Oh my God, she was completely breaking down crying. So instead of being like, no, she wasn't crying, it's wish her face was red. And maybe she had been. I don't know. Joseph was probably shaking because he knew exactly what had just taken place. He's probably scared to death. And from what I understand, though, other people were saying that he was the one with more of the, reaction or whatever. So, but again, all these people that get up there, their testimony is being torn apart by, did you live with them? Did you do this? Did you see the girls? Did you change them? Did you, all this type of stuff. The state is just taking it apart. Another thing that's going on with these witnesses is trying to get to the heart of Millie is a liar from the defense. And that part, and we're gonna go ahead and jump into that with Dr. Powell's testimony now. It's just frustrating because that can go so many different ways. And again, what I see happening, I get some of the stuff that comes out of a child's mouth you have to take with a grain of salt, but I also get the other things when you start adding them up, and it's like, if this child is saying A, B, C, and D at different times and all this, and it's remaining the same, let's look into this a little further. And I feel like that's what has happened. But there are other things that I'm like, I get it, kids can repeat things, whatever. It's salt in the wound when someone gets on the stand that is essentially there to discredit the child. And you feel like, wow. And so let's just go ahead and talk about him, because for me, he was the star witness of the day, but not for good reasons. So first, let's talk about the fact of, the defense is up there. So Dr. Powell is his name. He's a licensed psychologist. He got his undergraduate and his master's at Duke. Duke offers, I don't know the exact name of it right now, but it was like a religion. It's for religious stuff. Duke offers these programs there that are, it's a private Catholic school. And they offer these programs there, and I think they have one for psychology, or the psychology and or social work. And I actually looked into the social work one. And I remember when I viewed it, I was like, oh, it's like heavily intertwined with religion and, or something. And it could be different at this point. I don't know. But I just remember that was kind of a turn off for me personally. And so I was like, oh, well, this guy did that. And then he got his PhD from NC State, which that's where I went to college. And so, which I was like, oh my God, whatever. So I just thought that was interesting because I was like, oh, okay, well, he's, been to this area or whatever. But the Duke thing, I was like, okay, very interesting because his background is heavily religious. So I'm just like, okay. So she's going through the usual questions that she does to qualify someone as an expert, and y'all, I'm not hearing it. If you get up there and tell me that you went to college and got a PhD and these are your three things, and then essentially she's like, a couple more questions. How many trials have you testified as an expert in? Well over 200. So 200, let's say. That's the number you said. Well over, could be 215, 210, whatever. I'm like, I'm not getting expert vibe off here. These, look at the medical examiner that came through. The credentials she listed. I mean, this guy listed his few things and then was like, well, I wrote a paper for an honors credit. And I'm like, that doesn't make you an expert. And so I thought it was very interesting because in these trials, this is the first person that I've seen somebody object so highly to them becoming an expert. And so, and another thing, she's trying to make him an expert in child abuse. But all the stuff that he talks about is like child molestation. And basically he's somebody that comes in to try to debunk what the child is saying. Now, what he's talking about with the aspect of divorces where maybe a kid has been coerced or coached, as he calls it, to give false testimony. Okay, I get that there are sadly and unfortunately cases out there where people do this. But this is one of these things where I'm like, any level-headed person, and I get she has to do what she can do, but she's bringing these people in, like, really, you're bringing someone like that in who is going to already be a little bit, and applying it to this case where the evidence is, like, overwhelming, and you're going to try and get this guy to come in here just to basically say that Millie has been coached and she's lying. I mean, really? Like, really? So just that aspect of him is kind of like, okay, what? But I would listen to what he said, and they get up there, and of course, she's She finally questioned somebody for more than a couple of minutes, which I was like, okay, awesome. Now, again, when they were trying to do all this stuff about, getting him done as an expert, most of his published work is through like religious outlets. So that aspect, I was just like, this guy's background is in religion. Like, why is he up here? Is this the only person you could find? He goes into the hypothesis testing scenario, which is essentially, almost like, in my opinion, like, you do a test scenario to see how this kid's answering or whatever. I don't know the exact science behind it. I'm not going to even try and pretend that I do. But it's basically a way to figure out if what the child is saying, like, we could interpret something. So he used this example. Say a kid says, they sexted me. Well, we're going to think as adults, like, what that means. So it's a way to find out, like, are we on the same page here? Or, what all are we talking about? So a lot of stuff like that. Very big on children and children of any age, and anyone can be coached. It's learning. It's all that. He goes into this aspect about a transition that took place between the third and the fourth interviews with Millie. So he names the stuff that he looked at. And he didn't look at a ton of the stuff from this case. And this is going to also introduce us to the overall theme I'm seeing here. And so basically he's like, well, between the third interview that Millie did, she, spoke highly of the Miss Jennifer. And the fourth one, it was negative. So what happened? I want to know what happened in there. And because we don't know this, that, the other, or whatever. So, and he was reviewing like the forensic interviews or something. And so there's that. So then the state gets up there. And they basically start saying, were you aware? Because, he's saying, well, this statement that she said, doesn't make sense. Like, because, again, taken out of context, it's easy to say, well, she's been coached to say that, or maybe this, or maybe that. The state gets up there and starts adding the context. Are you aware that she made this statement at the hospital the night of the murder, the death, whatever? That also coincides with this information from your forensic thing that you read. No, I wasn't aware of that. Of course you weren't. Wasn't made aware of statements prior to November 18th. So technically he really has no idea if what he was reading is consistent with past information because he wasn't given that information. So it becomes very obvious to me where I'm like, this is what's going on. She is coming up to people, these witnesses, most of them, almost everyone I've seen, and saying, what do you think about this right here? I don't want you to see there's a TV sitting here and a radio sitting here that this controls. What do you think of this right here? And they're saying, oh, well, da-da-da-da-da-da-da. And then they're getting in the courtroom, and she has not told them any of this, not shown them these pictures, not done this. And the state is able to cross-examine them. And they're seeing these shocking photos, finding out all these inconsistencies from Jennifer. And it's shocking most of these people. And so just like this guy, he was blubbering around there for the most part. I mean, if you watched it, when he said, the state asked him something, and he said, oh, that surprises me because in Europe, you only have 24 hours to do that, or you can't use it in the trial or court. And she goes, well, that's in Europe. And he's like, well, I know, I was just saying that because, they're supposed to have all this scientific edge on us. And it's like, okay, that's in Europe. Why are you even saying this? Why would you even say that? Think it, sure, but don't say it out loud. I mean, really? So, the state then presents some statistics, like from research and stuff, that basically counteract his claims about questioning, and like that how many of these, these studies were basically like, how many kids really were influenced by this and that, and I mean, it was next to nil. And so he's like, well, it just doesn't look good at all because the defense is not prepping these people at all, y'all. They are not. I don't even think they're telling them basic information. It's like, okay, well, remember your testimony was you saw Jennifer, because what they do typically with these things is they meet with these people beforehand. They go over some of this. And so obviously they don't want to come in there and make it out like, okay, well, we met yesterday, you said this. There's a little bit of theatrics there, but these people act like, well, I don't know, I haven't talked about this in so long. And I'm like, again, does she just call people up randomly and say show up tomorrow? And now telling me even why, because that's what it seems like. Now, another person that was interesting was Samantha, a former law school student who got up there. So there's a couple of those former law school students, whatever, with her. This one stuck out to me because she's a prosecutor now. And you could tell that she was trying to avoid some things where she was like, as a prosecutor, she knows the drill because she's like, I have to have some context to this. Yes, this would give me concern. No, that wouldn't. I would need more information, this out of the other. But she did. And for that reason, I was kind of, but I mean, to me, I'm just like, some of these pictures, when you look at them, you just simply can't deny that it's like, ouch. You know, that, wow, that's really concerning. So that part, I was like, And then again, these other students, like, you know, somebody who she interned with, so on and so forth. You know, they get up there and it's the same type of stuff. Oh, she would bring them into school. I worked at the snack shack, and, you know, oh, I saw her and this and that. And, you know, no, I've never changed the child. No, I've never done this. None of this stuff. And so, again, I just feel like the defense is making themselves look really bad because they're opening themselves up to cross-examination. They are not telling these people everything. So these people are coming in there with half-truths. You know, they've just been shown this right here. And so then when they get in there and they're like, oh, you know that it controls this thing over here. They're like, oh, no, I just thought I was talking about this. Okay, so now let me get my bearings straight. Oh, it does that? Okay. And that's what you're seeing. And the ones that try and act like, no, I see that over there, but I mean, it doesn't bother me. You know, it's just like, yeah, honey, we know it does. You know, maybe take some time to digest it, but, you know, whatever. So then they do this. I'm going to get ready to end this out. We see the first rumblings of Dr. Sperry, and they have this whole thing over these slides. And again, just listening to it, so the jury's let out, we hear them kind of rumble back and forth, the defense and the state, and they have to have a mini hearing or whatever and question Dr. Sperry, who, you know, okay, I cannot wait to see him. Everyone has been asking me about this. And so they go back and forth over it. Well, eventually he says that no, they can't use the slides. And I mean, I'm listening and I'm like, okay, everything she touches seems to have an underhandedness to it. And, you know, and again, the judge was being fair where I thought he was like, okay, let's see, you know, when did this guy change his mind? Is that why we had to all of a sudden use the slides? Like, you know, let's be fair here. And I guess when he heard the testimony, he wasn't buying it. He was like, no, we're going to get rid of the slides. But it's just, you know, and if the state, what they're saying is true, like, well, she didn't say this and that. She leaves these things out. And again, she has nothing to work with. And so why she took the case on, because in my opinion, if you took it on for publicity, it's not done well for you. Because literally, I mean, unless, even if you were somebody that had like done something grimy and you want to get off the charges, I mean, you couldn't really look at her performance, I would think, and say, that's the person I need. I mean, because pretty much it's a three-ring circus. It's a joke. You know, it's a literal joke. I mean, I'm embarrassed for it at this point. I'm just like, oh my God. Like, I wouldn't stop at the gas station to get a honey bun on the way home. I'd be like, I'm not getting the honey bun. I'm not going to be seen in public after what I just did in that courtroom. So let's go ahead and end it here because the clock is saying it's going on 24 minutes, which it will be a little shorter once I edit it. But still, I don't want to bore you with my rambling. Anyways, I hope y'all are doing well. I appreciate you hanging out with me. There's lots of links down in that description. Check them out if you can. And don't forget to hit that bell if you want to know when I'm here to hang out. And I shall talk to you later.